my friend Ann Coulter, coming up next, and we'll talk about the China virus on the Lars Larson Show. I usually get a kick out of Ann Coulter's columns, and she's been a good friend for a long, long time. But this one was particularly funny because she didn't go to LexisNexis. Maybe they've cut off her LexisNexis during the great China virus pandemic, which she compares to the Orson Welles invasion of New Jersey. Why New Jersey? Who knows? But Ann, welcome back to the program. Did they cut off your LexisNexis subscription? Is that the problem?
No,
you don't have a lot of facts and figures
in there. I did a lot of research all week on this, and I realized I had a lot to say about a lot of different things, and just thought this format would be an easier way to present them.
As in letters you didn't actually get, and then the answers to the questions that weren't actually posed. That actually works out a lot better. In fact, my show would probably work better if I could just make up all the callers, but I couldn't be as eclectic as some of my callers. Although I notice you described the president in there not as the authoritarian that all the liberals want him to be, but as a lazy, narcissistic blowhard. I take it you and the president are on the outs again right now? Is that?
Well, he's always been a lazy, narcissistic blowhard, but he's not as bad as the media. They keep bringing me back, even as I'm describing him as a lazy, narcissistic blowhard. That was an answer to the question, but I thought Trump was an authoritarian, which has always just cracked me up. Of all the things you can say about Trump, and there are a lot of things, he's like the opposite of an authoritarian. He's a suck-up. He's constantly saying everything's wonderful. Kim Jong-il, oh, my best friend. He's great, very strong leader. Putin. Everybody loves everybody. Just like Hitler, just like Stalin. Everything's incredible. But no, we are getting a lot of authoritarianism from the people who are usually accusing Trump of authoritarianism, i.e. all these Democratic governors with their hilariously fascistic rules. Their idea of science is control. We must control you. And my argument made through the series of questions and answers is that, we don't know much about this Wuhan flu, as we're told on a daily basis from a media trying to panic us. But there is one thing we know, and that is that it mostly targets old people and immunocompromised people. That's great news. That's fantastic news. A virus or a disease that targets anyone, any group of people, that really helps us because then we can narrow it down. We need protections for this group of people. As I say in my column or my answers, it could be golfers, it could be left-handers, it could be the nearsighted. Any group, if this is the main target group, and it is overwhelmingly old people and people with one of three conditions, in fact. I think 97%, I think that's what I read. Like I say, I did a lot of research, but then just used it to write the column without dropping all of the facts. 97% of the people it was 94%. Big study in the Journal of JAMA. And that was 94% of all of the dead in New York City, which has been hit the hardest. 94% had at least one comorbidity. I think 88% had two. And the three big ones are hypertension, obesity, and diabetes. A lot of overlap in those three categories. 80% of the dead in New York, 80% of the dead in America, 80% of the dead in Italy, 70 years old or older. So how about we tell these Democratic governors, you can do all your little fascistic things. Demand that people over the age 70, I'll give you age 65. They need a note from the governor to leave their homes. So it's great that we can narrow it down to protecting this one group, but lift all the fascistic regulations for the rest of us and let us go about our lives. We've been in quarantine or in self-isolation now for a month. At this point, those of us, and 90% of the country has been under stay-at-home orders. 90% of the country does not have coronavirus. We either had it and had no symptoms, or we never had it but we're free and clear. We don't need masks. We don't need social distancing. We can go about our business. So my suggestions are, well, number one, what I just said, protect the elderly, aggressively, and elderly and diabetes, obese, hypertension. Number two, we need an immigration moratorium. We're all free and clear now. This country should be 90% Wuhan virus free. Now, there are a lot of reasons to shut down immigrants. We need jobs for Americans. Oh, my gosh, do we need jobs for Americans? Companies have gone under, and they aren't coming back because of this shutdown. We need to get Americans working again. We need to pay them again. There are a million reasons for this shutdown. It was something, or rather, the moratorium.
Okay, but Trump should actually make you happy in that case, because he's actually said, number one, I'm going to tell the sanctuary cities and states you're not getting any federal cash unless you cooperate with ICE. Number two, we're going to close down the border. And frankly, I don't know if you saw this or not, yesterday, Mexico, the story came out that Mexico had said, we can't deal with all these illegals. They have illegals too. So they shipped them all home, all but maybe 100 of them, literally. They just took all their detention centers and said, send these people back where they came from. And they did it successfully.
Yes, no, they're doing more than Trump is. He says he's going to do a lot of things. He told us 2 weeks ago we were going to get an immigration moratorium, and then President Kushner overruled him and said, no, we'll just cut off about 10%, the green card holders. But all the work visas, no, those we're going to be increasing those to take jobs from Americans. Okay. So he says he'll do stuff, he doesn't actually do it. Anyway, immigration moratorium like we had from 1925 to 1965, the most bustling, productive, booming period in this nation's history. Immigration moratorium protects the elderly. Number three, no more handshaking, but I've always been in favor of that. And only in confined spaces, crowded confined spaces. That's the only place you need a mask. You don't need a mask outside. That's crazy. It's crazy.
As much as you love LexisNexis, I like numbers. Okay? Let me throw a number at you. So we don't know exactly how deadly this is, but we think the low point would probably be the seasonal flu, which is 1 in 1,000 die who get it. And we have 30 to 60,000 people die. The high point might be as high as 1%, although most of the doctors I talk to now, they'd started out saying it's probably going to be 1 back in January. Now we're looking at more like 1/2 of 1% when we know the true number who got it and the true number who
I think
died.
It's less than that.
Okay, it may be.
In
you think it's less than seasonal
Europe,
flu?
And it's 0.03.
So that's 0.3 of 1%. So 3 in 1,000, right?
Yeah.
Seasonal flu is 1. If I run the numbers, 95% of the country has not had this disease, and I base that on some pretty good studies. The one where they just looked at Manhattan and said 25%.
We think 20% have.
Yeah, the state of New York is 13. The 2 studies out of California say 3 to 5%. Fine, I'll give you 15. So 85% of the country hasn't had it. So if it's out there, our bodies have no experience with it, and you have a very good chance of getting it. And as you point out, 99% of the people who get it aren't going to have anything really bad happen. Huh?
Are fine.
Yes, but here's the problem.
Absolutely fine. But
let me finish the math problem. Here's the math problem. So let's say most of the rest of the country gets it over the next 18 months. We're looking at if it was the seasonal flu death rate, we're looking at 150 to 175,000 people dying. Are we okay with that?
I don't think so. Now even that crazy outfit in Washington State is estimating 60,000. So far, all of the estimates have been so far off. No, I'm going with the emergency room doctors. I'm not going with the academicians who are coming up with models.
You're not talking about the 2 guys from California from Bakersfield, are you?
Yeah, I love those guys.
Oh, no, you should not love those guys because you are a statistics person, and you should know. You know how they got their stats? They looked at the people coming into their urgent care clinics who are already sick, and they said, let's do a study on who's sick.
I recommend that people actually watch the video. It's fantastic.
I've watched the whole thing, and I've also looked at the numbers. But
I don't care what they said. Yes, I'm happy. Yes, 150,000. And by the way, it's not going to be 150,000 because we've just been in quarantine for a month. And we do know that the people who die are it's a specific targeted group. So we know 90% of the country is not at risk at all of dying. They're at risk of getting sick and not knowing it, or getting sick and knowing it. But dying, they're not even at risk of it. 150,000, well, we got up to 80,000 in 1917, or sorry, 19...
yeah, don't go back.
What am I saying? 2017, 2018. So you have a bad flu season.
Double that. Ann Coulter, thank you very
The
much.
Lars Larson Show.